coming back to seasonality, right? What is seasonality, and does ARIMA handle it well, or should we go towards something like SARIMA?
Seasonality is again, there is no hard and fast definition of that. It's essentially it's recurring patterns with a cyclicity or cycle length that is reasonably fixed. So the simplest thing that everybody will think about is ice cream sales higher in summer than in winter. So the seasonality, the cycle is the year. It's a month of year, week of year, day of year pattern. But there is also other kinds of seasonality. And in retail, you typically see higher sales on Saturday, at least in Europe, Friday and Saturday, and then the rest of the week, because that's when people do their big weekly shopping. So you have an intra-weekly seasonality, typically lower sales Monday to Thursday, higher sales on Friday and Saturday. It's seasonality. It repeats. Few people call it seasonality, but it's the exact same effect. If you're looking at power, electric power consumption, you have, and those are typically measured in 15-minute increments, for instance, and have a huge seasonality within the day, because at night, fewer people will consume electricity, and there is a lot higher consumption during the day, especially around noon, when people will cook their food and turn on their stoves and turn on, and the fridge will start running. So you have an intraday seasonality. And the fun starts when it all comes together. So electricity consumption, again, you have time of day seasonality, but the time of day seasonality in electricity consumption, of course, varies by day of week, because during the week, Monday through Friday, people are at work. Saturday, Sunday, people are at home or on holidays, and then the patterns are completely different. And a dear friend of mine, Bahman Samitabar, does forecasting for the UK National Health Service, and he has lovely time series about ambulance demand. And ambulance demand, again, has patterns. You typically have hourly data here, and you have a peak on Friday night and Saturday nights, because that's when people go out drinking and starting to have fights or falling downstairs drunk. And so you have lots of ambulances going on Friday and Saturday evening, but at the same point in time, not during the rest of the week, not on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. So you have seasonality that is overlaying each other, and I like to call that multiple seasonalities. Finally, you have seasonalities. You have patterns that are complex, that don't recur in fixed time periods, in fixed cyclicalities. For instance, anything that has to do with a lunar calendar, like Christian Easter, that moves around in the normal calendar year. All the Jewish holidays and so on, they're all depending on the moon calendar. And since the moon, unfortunately, does not completely align with our regular calendar, all that moves around. And that gives you patterns in certain topics, products, and so on, that you need to forecast, and they're a bit harder to capture than the regular patterns. Okay. ARIMA as such doesn't do any seasonality at all, because it just looks back a couple of time periods. And of course, you could say, just use an AR that looks back far enough so it captures the same period a year back or something. That's typically heavily over-parameterized. So what we do in ARIMA is typically we not only do the integration, the differencing from one time period to the next, but we'll also do a seasonal differencing. So if you have monthly data, you take the differences between this month and the month 1 year back. So a differencing of an order of 12. And then we essentially model not the increment time over time, but month last year over month this year, and the same for the next month, and so on and so forth. And that's essentially how SARIMA, seasonal ARIMA, treats seasonal data. And then you get these monstrous things where you have a SARIMA model that's parameterized described not by 3 components, the AR, I, and MA component, but also the 3 corresponding components for the seasonal dynamics in here. And so we have 6 numbers that describe your SARIMA model. And even then, when you have multiple seasonalities, as I was saying, these patterns that overlay each other, it's ARIMA and SARIMA starts struggling heavily, and essentially it doesn't work anymore. And that's when you start putting in harmonics and splines and everything. And pretty soon you're in a situation where you're actually running a regression, regression in the widest possible sense. Could be an OLS regression. It could be anything that just takes models data based on these harmonics, and then you apply ARIMA to the residuals, because there might still be some autoregressive behavior in the residuals from your regression. So you mix and match models from time series analysis and from straightforward statistics, machine learning, and so on.